Just a quick note, at the end of this, I will show you the worksheet that has to be completed, and I will also read all of the questions. The worksheet is in the Google Classroom. It's a Google Doc that you'll have to fill out. Okay, let's get started. What employers owe workers. Employers owe certain things to their employees. One of these, of course, is payment for their work. Other responsibilities include the following: training and supervision. An employer should provide the necessary on-the-job training. Once the worker starts the job, the employer should give proper supervision and feedback. Workers need to know what to do and how well they are performing. Orientation to the workplace. A worker deserves information about company policies and rules. When these change, the employer should tell its workers. Honesty and respect. An employer owes all its workers honesty and respect. Fair employment practices. Laws cover child labor, work hours, and payment of wages. An employer who wants to avoid legal problems must obey such laws. Protection from discrimination. Laws prohibit discrimination against workers. Safe working conditions. Years ago, employers did not have to provide safe working conditions. Many workers paid with their lives. Employers now must follow certain health and safety standards. The first three responsibilities in the preceding list, training, supervision, and workplace orientation, were discussed in Chapter 6. The remaining ones will be covered in this chapter. Honesty and respect. An employer who pays your salary has a right to tell you what to do as long as it is not unlawful. Most employers, however, realize that honesty and respect toward their employees are essential. Workers are not robots. They are human beings with pride and self-worth. The historically important case study at the beginning of the chapter shows what can happen when a company forgets about the feelings of its workers. The Lordstown story illustrates that employers cannot always force workers to do what they want them to do. The best relationship is one in which employers treat workers as they wish to be treated. Honesty and respect are the foundation for a good relationship between employers and workers. Fair employment practices. Many state and federal laws cover employment practices and the manners and methods by which employers deal with their employees. A very important federal law is the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. It applies to employers or companies that do business in more than one state and have annual sales above a certain amount. The FLSA covers child labor, wages and hours, and equal pay. Child labor. The FLSA includes laws covering workers under the age of 18. For instance, people 15 years old and younger cannot work in factories or work during school hours, nor can those under 18 work in dangerous occupations such as mining. Each of the 50 states also has its own child labor laws. If both federal and state laws apply to a situation, the employer must obey the stricter standard. For instance, David is 17 and wants to work at a sawmill in his town. His state's laws would let him work there. Federal law, though, says that such jobs are too dangerous for workers under 18. David will have to wait until his next birthday to apply for a mill job. You learned in Chapter 3 that the law is flexible to allow students to take part in work experience education programs. In most states, schools issue work permits to those between 14 and 17 years of age. This allows students to work during school hours. The program helps protect the health and welfare of minors. It regulates the types of work they may do and the hours they can work. Can you think of how a work permit benefits employers as well? Wages and hours. The FLSA sets standards for minimum wages and maximum hours for most workers in the United States. Many states also have laws about workers' pay. The minimum wage is the lowest hourly wage the law permits employers to pay workers. Remember, not all employers are covered by this law. In 1938, the national minimum wage was 25 cents an hour. By September 2005, the figure had risen to $5.15 an hour. The same law permits employers to pay a training wage to workers under age 20. The training wage is set at 85% of the minimum wage. Employers are permitted to pay this wage for the first 90 days of employment. Congress periodically raises the minimum wage. What is the current minimum wage? The FLSA also sets the length of the standard work week, which is, by law, the completion of 40 hours of work during a 7-day period. Time worked beyond 40 hours is called overtime. For overtime hours, employers must pay workers at a rate of 1.5 times their regular rate. The discussion of overtime pay in Chapter 10 holds special interest for us all. That material deals with how to figure overtime on a paycheck. Equal pay. Jose and Ruth are assistant managers for a small hotel chain. They started working for the hotel at the same time. They have equal qualifications. Ruth has learned that Jose makes a lot more money than she does. Ruth has tried to figure out the problem. She knows that workers sometimes receive different salaries because of shift work, skill level, seniority, and other things. Ruth has ruled out all those reasons. The only difference that Ruth can name is that she is a woman. Ruth knows that the Equal Pay Act of 1963 outlaws different wage scales for equal work. This means that workers doing the same job must receive the same wage. What should Ruth do? Protection from discrimination. As you have learned, laws protect workers from being discriminated against. Discrimination means favoring one person as compared to another. For example, if an employer will not hire you only because of your race, that is discrimination. Another example is being passed over for promotion because of your gender. So too is being fired from your job because you are older. Laws cover equal treatment in such areas as hiring, promotion, and job security. They deal with the broad topics of equal employment opportunity and affirmative action. Equal employment opportunity. The passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 gave the government a strong legal tool to prevent job discrimination. It paved the way for equal employment opportunity. Under equal employment opportunity, employers, unions, and employment agencies cannot discriminate against people because of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, administers the Civil Rights Act and related laws. In 1964, Warren Johnson lost his job as a landscaper. His employer had gone out of business. Warren was 56 at the time. With his experience, he figured that he would easily find a job. The first 2 employers to whom he applied told him he was too old. Warren was upset. At the time, he could not legally fight the employers. Today, Warren could take action against them. The Age Discrimination Act of 1967 was passed to prohibit discrimination against people between 40 and 70 years of age. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973 extended protection to those with physical or mental disabilities. The most recent legislation prohibiting discrimination in employment practices is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which took effect in 1992. It gives civil rights protections to individuals with disabilities similar to those provided on the basis of race, sex, national origin, age, and religion. The EEOC also administers these laws. Another recent employment-related law is the Family and Medical Leave Act, which took effect in August of 1993. It requires employers with 50 or more workers to grant up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave a year. This allows workers to take time off to help care for a new baby or an ill family member without fear of losing their jobs. Affirmative action. Equal employment opportunity laws forbid job discrimination. What about those people who have been victims of past discrimination, though? For instance, many women and members of minority groups have been unjustly passed over for job promotions. This is an example of a condition that affirmative action tries to correct. Affirmative action is a set of policies and programs designed to correct past discrimination. It is not a single federal law, although many federal regulations and laws require affirmative action in hiring and promotions. Most affirmative action programs include special efforts to hire and promote women, members of minority groups, people with disabilities, and Vietnam veterans. Okay, your assignment is follows. There are 4 questions on here. You need to read through the questions and then use what you learned from the chapter, and you can always go back and look through it if you needed to, and answer the questions. Question number 1. Jamie works at a large aircraft engine plant. He and his wife are planning to adopt a 6-year-old girl. Jamie would like to have some time off to be with his new daughter. Is Jamie entitled to leave under state or federal law? Write down the name of the law with the higher standard, state or federal, how much leave Jamie is entitled to, and any conditions, such as whether the leave is paid or unpaid. Second question. Millie is one of 5 female machine operators at a factory. She and the other women have learned that they are being paid substantially less than male factory operators who perform the same kind of work. The factory is not a union shop. Millie has followed her company's procedures for addressing the problem without success. What should she do next? The third question. Wendy is a new employee at an auto collision repair shop. Today, she is given a new kind of solvent to use to clean car parts before painting. Wendy reads the directions and sees that hazardous fumes can be created if the solvent is not properly prepared. She points this out to the more experienced coworker she's been assigned to work with. He tells her not to worry about it and starts to mix the solvent the way it's always been done. What should Wendy do? And the fourth one is, Josephine is a work experience student working at a restaurant as a chef's assistant. She has noticed that one of the cooks frequently fails to wash her hands between food preparation steps, which include handling raw meat. What should Josephina do?